Time is precious, and so are our pets. So time with our pets is extra precious. That's why we started Dutch. Dutch provides 24/7 access to licensed vets, with unlimited virtual visits and follow-ups for up to 5 pets. You can message a vet at any time and schedule a video visit the same day. Our vets can even prescribe medication for many ailments, and shipping is always free. With Dutch, you'll get more time with your pets and year-round peace of mind when it comes to their vet care.
Hello, book lovers. Welcome to Must Love Books. Hello, and welcome back to Must Love Books. Today, I am here with author Clare Solly. She has released The Time Turner, Christmas in Cleats, and Save the Last Piece. Clare Solly is a modern-day Renaissance woman living in New York City. She is an actress, a writer, and by day, she is an executive assistant, among many other things. Clare has a master's degree in psychology with a focus on nonprofit management. In addition to writing, Clare competes in beauty pageants and runs 2 different theater companies in New York City, the Bechdel Group and Company of Fools Theater, where she loves to foster and challenge new writers. Hello and welcome, Clare. How are you?
Krystle, I'm doing very well today. How are you?
I am so good, and I am so happy to have you here today.
Wonderful. I'm excited to be chatting with you. We've been talking about this for a while, so
I know, glad we finally made it work. So how about we just dive right in, and I want to hear a little bit from your own words about your 3 currently published books.
Absolutely. So my writing journey started, we're in 2024, so my writing journey started 12 years ago with The Time Turner. I got really tired of journaling about a guy who broke my heart and started writing letters to him because, not dramatic at all. And then because I'm a Gemini and I'm not satisfied with only outgoing letters, I started responding to myself. But since I'm a little paranoid, I made different names for the outgoing and the incoming. And those letters actually kind of inspired the end of The Time Turner. And I just started writing this time travel romance novel. I was in my Doctor Who era, time travel romance novel, which I highly discourage anyone from writing, because unless you're really good at a timeline or plotting out a book, it is a crazy endeavor. And wrote this book about this woman living in New York who inherits a brownstone in Brooklyn and magically falls back through time. And, she's in sort of her own love triangle because she's got a doctor in the future who she's in love with. And she starts to fall in love with the man in the past who owns this house. And she's trying to figure out how to get home and if she wants to even get home. And it's a fun and interesting twist on a time travel novel. And then my recent book that I just published, I actually started after I published that book I published Time Turner in 2015. And then shortly after I started my most recent novel, but as one does, it sat in a drawer for many years. So it's actually my 3rd novel. So my 2nd novel, Christmas in Cleats, one of my best friends said to me, she's like, I would love to be the best friend in a Hallmark movie. And I said, well, I'm not really good at writing scripts. I'm good at helping people with scripts, but I'm not really good at writing them. So let me write you a novel. So I wrote her as the best friend in Christmas in Cleats, which is, again, a very Hallmarky. There was a Hallmark contest at the time that was submit your novel. So it was very Hallmarky. I went online and literally found the Hallmark drinking games and put 3 of the best ones together and tried to capture every single Hallmark trope I could. And I think I got all but 3 of the tropes that were on those drinking games. And it's a snowy Connecticut romance. The main character, female main character, runs a museum in Connecticut, and it's failing, and her best friend in high school has stopped talking to her because he's a famous baseball player. And of course, he comes home to deal with the past, and they reunite, and all kinds of magic happen. Um, and that's just a good old-fashioned fun. And then the third novel I just published in September of 2023, and it is sort of a Devil Wears Prada of the wedding industry. I worked in the wedding industry in New York for about 3 years and had all kinds of crazy stories and had friends with crazy stories. And of course, all stories and names have been changed to protect me. Um, but it was a fun kind of release to write about all these different insane weddings that I went to, because I found myself in this world that I never thought I would be in, going to fancy places like the Rainbow Room and the St. Regis, and working with all kinds of brides and their families. And it was it's a fun little book too. It's definitely anxiety ridden. So if you're in the mood for so I think one of my reviews was it's an anxiety ridden palette cleanser. So if you're in the mood for that, go find Save the Last Piece.
That sounds awesome. And I have to say, honestly, I love Devil Wears Prada so much. So hearing that it is a comparison to that, I was immediately hooked. Like you didn't even have to say anything after that.
Yeah, well, and it's funny because I actually got sort of slapped on the wrist on Amazon because they don't like you to compare books to other books, I guess, in your blurbs. So I had to figure out a different way to phrase it. But yeah, that is seems to be it really is kind of, as I was writing it, a friend was reading pages and she was like, "Wow, this is very Devil Wears Prada."
I love that so much. Okay, so what you said about Christmas and cleats, I love how you essentially have a role reversal between the main woman and her love interest. It's normally the fancy woman is coming to small town and having to help the small town boy save his family farm or, whatever. So I like that you really switched those roles and found a new way to play on those tropes.
Yeah, I think my writing, I mean, I feel like every writer has sort of a central theme or pull or whatever it is through all of their writing. And mine, since I am a single lady in New York City trying to still figure out her life, like that's what all of my female main characters seem to be. And try to not only figure out what their life is, but how to stay a strong woman, but also learn how to ask for help and be what they want to be without totally giving over to maleness, patriarchy, whatever you want to call it.
Maleness.
Male men.
Just men in general.
Not that I'm not not here to bash any of that. I want women to be strong and give
Exactly.
strong role models.
Absolutely. So I want to hear real quick about some of your theater companies and the work that you do with them. That sounds absolutely amazing.
So it is and it's not. It's funny. I'm actually going to run one of the theater companies this evening. We're doing a writing workshop this evening. So it's very timely. So a little history. I've been acting since I was 6 years old. I grew up in community theater and I got my bachelor's in acting. I was out in Los Angeles at the time. I'm a very tall woman. I'm 6 feet tall. You can't tell on Zoom. I'm very tall. And LA was just not working out for me. They like skinny, pretty people in LA. And I moved to New York when I was in my 30s and took a run at Broadway and did some film work here. And I actually worked a lot my first 5 years in New York. And then I found myself sort of not working as much. And I As you mentioned in my bio, I got a degree in nonprofit management. And the thought behind that was, well, if I don't have a Broadway career by the time I'm X age, I will go run theater companies. So I stumbled onto one in about 2018, and it's called the Bechtel Group, and we focus on roles for women or roles for underwritten about groups, which is the company I'm going to work with this evening. And we mainly work with writers, so screenwriters and playwrights, and we workshop new plays. We bring in actors and readers and people to help dramaturg the play, and we sit around and we read a bit of a script and then we talk about it, and we say what we would like, what works, what doesn't work, sort of a feeding session, a not a brain feeding session, not zombies, a brainstorming session. That sounds much better.
I'm going to use brain feeding from here on
Please.
out, just so you
Here
know.
Please. A brain feeding session. I feel like that's like in. Um, so, and I don't like, I love that group because for all the work, for all the time that I put in, it never fails. I leave because we sit around and we do this once a month, and it's probably 10 to 20 hours extra a month that I put in as a volunteer just to assemble everything and get everything ready. And that's not even to mention fundraising and whatever else. But I always leave the session after sitting around with these writers and these different readers and these stories, and I feel so alive with story and just am excited to go write my own things. Like it never fails. I always have a pad on the train and I'm always scribbling notes on my way home. Like, here are 10 new ideas to write about, short stories, or, here's for my current work in progress. Here's where I want to go. And with that theater company, we don't produce a lot of your traditional theater, but we do produce a lot of, again, ideas and furthering scripts along. And so that one's really, it's a neat theater company that sort of feeds my soul. So that's why I work with that one. And then the other theater company is an indie theater company in New York, and we produce about 2 shows a year, Company of Fools. We've started doing, we founded and we were doing contemporary classics. So we were doing like your Sam Shepard's and your like 1980s, 1990s. These plays have been out for a little while. Let's revisit them and redo them again, because the story 40 years later, gosh, it feels weird to say the 80s was 40 years ago. 40 years later has a different meaning now, post Me Too and Black Lives Matter and things like that. So we focused on those, and now we're also trying to do new works as well, to get more voices out there. So I just love working with, again, my strength is not in script writing, but I'm really good at seeing a story arc. And from the novel writing perspective, I can go to a playwright or a script writer and say, well, have you thought about this? Or, you're not quite getting the circle of the story, or you're not quite getting the arc, or this character doesn't really get developed enough. So I find it interesting that the two can kind of complement each other in a way.
I love that so much. That is great.
I do too.
I actually went to New York for my birthday last year with my best friend Ren, and we weren't there for super long. We were only there for a couple days, and we stayed mostly in we visited Brooklyn for a burlesque show, and we went to Times Square to see a Broadway show. We saw Moulin Rouge, which was excellent. Seriously, so amazing. I loved it so much. And then we kind of just
that show for about 3 years.
Oh my goodness, did you?
I was an usher in that show.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Oh, it was so good. Such an amazing time. And I would so see that show again and again and again.
That was one because one of my side jobs, I ushered at 6 different Broadway theaters, and that was one that I was always happy to sign up for. I think I saw that show at least 100 times and it never got old.
I'm kind of jealous, to be honest. Yeah, that it was so good. So yeah, we saw that. And I want to say we stayed in the East Village area.
Yeah.
Don't quote me on that though, because I don't read maps well and don't know New York neighborhoods very well. But it was honestly such a great time. You know, mostly we walked around and ate food and like touched everyone's dogs.
Yeah. Yeah.
There were
You were
dogs
definitely in
everywhere.
a village with the
Yes.
dogs.
And I'm like, oh my goodness, I never would have thought to see so many dogs in the city like that.
We are a dog culture. We are a book culture in New York. It is a very interesting world. And New York is a funny city because it is just a bunch of small towns that are like, that go vertical, that are just kind of all crammed together. And everybody, we get a bad rap that the New Yorkers are rude. But if you stop and ask any New Yorker for directions or anything, generally we're all happy to stop. It's mostly because we are all crammed together that I tell everybody we're just so focused because we have to ignore everything. Otherwise you go crazy with people at such close proximity.
Yeah, it was such a great time. I would totally go back again.
How many times?
Especially,
We're
yeah.
open.
Yeah. Especially to come see some more Broadway shows and some other theaters as well.
Yeah. Well, and we get a lot of book signings down in Union Square, and there's like a hot new romance store in Brooklyn called the Bodice Ripper, I think.
Yes. Yeah, I think it's
A
the Ripped
lot.
Bodice.
The Ripped Bodice. Yes, I need to get over
Oh
that.
my goodness. I want to head over there so bad. I would literally take a trip to New York just to visit that bookstore. I mean, I would do more than that, but I would go just to visit that bookstore.
I mean, I think book vacations are very valid, and I think everybody should have a book vacation once a year.
Yes, we
Go
should.
do something. Yeah.
More book vacations.
More book vacations. Put it on the agenda.
Exactly. Write it down right now.
For my birthday, I'll go on one next year.
Yeah, where to?
Well, I keep seeing on my Bookstagram, people keep posting about this like street of books in London. And I lived in London for
Yes.
a semester in college, and I'm like, where did I miss this? I mean, there are bookstores everywhere in London. So it's not it's not shocking that there's a street of books, but at the same time, I'm also like, okay, where is this? Why has no one told me? Why don't I know? But I love London. London is my second favorite city next to New York. So I think I would go to London for my book vacation.
Yeah, I'll join you.
Let's do it.
Put it on the calendar.
On it.
Okay, so let's go ahead and we're gonna shift gears a little bit. I want to talk about spedges.
Okay.
Sprayed and painted edges. These have become such a big trend all over Bookstagram and Book Talk, and I don't have any myself at this moment in time, but I hear that you collect them.
I sort of do.
Oh my God, they're so beautiful.
They are addictive, and I find it slightly ridiculous how much I love them and how much joy opening book mail with a sprayed edge gives me. Um, but I scream and squeal like I'm a 6-year-old girl when I get them. Because they're so pretty. The shelf I just showed you uh houses not only my trophies and my crowns from my pageant queen ness, but it also contains my book trophies, and like they just make me so happy to look at. And I think the most expensive one I've bought oh, it was like $200.
Oh
But
my goodness.
I try to make myself only spend like $60 or less these days. But you can find them. I mean, you
Yeah.
go on Etsy, and there's so many people that are doing them. When I first saw them, I stumbled onto a Bookstagram account, Zenatine, I think that's how you say her handle. And she has like a room with them. And then most recently, her husband built shelves in her bedroom to house more books. So, go on that, because that's just book porn right there. Um, and I was like, I want this. I live in a tiny New York apartment, but I at least want one shelf. And I thought, oh, I'll go teach myself how to paint edges. So I watched like a whole bunch of YouTube videos, and I went out and bought some watercolor, some liquid watercolor. And I went to the thrift store down the street and bought a bunch of like hardbacks that were like $2 that I could experiment on, that had like pretty-ish color covers. So that way I could, because it doesn't matter what the cover looks like if you're going to put edge out. Um, and I was experimenting with some, and I really liked it, but it is so time consuming.
I
And
bet.
then I just stumbled down the rabbit hole of buying a couple of them, and just kept going.
Yeah, that is incredible. Now, do you read your spedged books, or are they trophies?
There, okay. So I have read the contents within the covers, but I have not actually read any of the books that I have smedges of. Some of them even still have plastic on.
You got to protect those trophies, keep them safe.
Well, and I'm like, I would love to hear comments. So please comment away on this podcast, because I would love to hear, like, take the plastic off, Claire, or leave the plastic on.
All right, I will tell you. I will tell you. You don't have plastic on your other ones, so you have to take the plastic off so it matches.
Okay, it's gonna be a little bit of a task, but okay, I'll do it.
And then keep it displayed and beautiful.
Yes. Yeah, I think part of it, so I live in a basement apartment in New York City, and from time to time it leaks. So part of me is like, no. But I think where they are is pretty safe. So yes, and then there's only, I don't know, 7 or 8 of them that have plastic. So yeah, you're right. They should match.
Create like some kind of umbrella to put over the shelf. So if it ever does leak, it all just goes everywhere else and your books
My
can be
ceiling will
safe.
look like that street. What is it? Is it Barcelona that has the street of like the umbrellas over top? I'll just put umbrellas.
Yes. Yes. And I'm
That
sure
is
you can
value.
even find a cute, like, bookish umbrella too. Yeah.
Oh,
Genius.
now you've given me a new quest.
Genius. Oh, yeah.
It's happening. Next
It's
time I'm back,
happening.
I will have a ceiling of umbrellas.
Yes. I cannot wait. I'm going to hold you to it. Let's go into your publishing journey.
Yeah. Again, it's been a long one. So I started Time Turner in 2012, and it took me about years to write it. And if you're keeping track, 2012 to 2015 is not 2.5 years, it's 5. And I had never known anybody who'd published a book at that point. I mean, I had a friend who published like a business type book, but I knew that she self-published in, 20, gosh, I think she published it in 2009 or 2010. So and book publishing moves so fast. So like the information she had was kind of a little bit outdated, and also not directly related to my fiction novel that I wrote. So I did all the research. I went online and looked through different different blogs and different posts, and tried to figure out how to write the best query letter. I tried to go the traditional way, and I did, I think, what a lot of people do, and I sent out like 20 query letters, and then waited a month, and then was dejected that I didn't hear back from anyone. And I was like, why doesn't it move faster? And then, of course, you read things about like it takes 3 to 6 months for agents and publishing houses, well, publishing houses won't touch your book without an agent most of the time anymore, but it takes, time for them to go through all the queries, and they have to be in the mood to read whatever you have as well. And they also are invested in whatever the market it is. And back then, I think like Girl on the Train and what was it? The Woman in the Window. Those were like the big books. So everybody was looking for like the next Gone Girl. They were looking for those Thrasher type things. And my time travel romance was definitely not that. And nobody really, I got one really nice rejection letter about 8 months later that was definitely a form letter. And thank you for submitting. And this is not something we're looking for at this time. And I think it actually said something like it's not a timely topic or something like that, and I don't remember because of course I was so sad that I tossed the letter. And then oddly enough, I went to a party. If you remember, I was in the wedding industry, and I went to an industry party, and there was a guy there who was randomly standing at this table by the bathroom, and I had a drink in my hand, and he was right there, and I was like, would you mind if I left my drink here while I used the restroom? And he was like, sure, fine. And when I came back out, being the polite person I am, because he was still standing all by himself and not really talking to anybody. And he didn't really, like, his outfit didn't really fit in with anybody else because everybody always dresses up super fancy at industry events in the wedding industry because they, like to show off their new finery for each other, which, hey, why not, right? So, I was chatting with him, and it turns out like he was a guest of somebody at the party, and he was just waiting for the party to be over. And he actually was like a published author of like 5 or 6 books. And I was like, tell me more. And he told me about self-publishing, and he's like, okay, here is the big secret. He's like, if you do not change your cover one bit, you can change any of the guts in the middle if you self-publish. You can change anything in the middle as long as the cover doesn't change. And if the cover changes, then you have to like change the ISBN and things like that. But your barcode is connected to your cover. And he said, so this is great because if you have any mistakes in your book, if you have anything you want to change, if there's a giant plot hole, etc., he's like, you can just go fix it and republish it whenever you want. And I was just like,
blown away.
Because at the time I was like, okay, well, you have to get an agent, and then you get an editor, and I had it backwards. Like, you want to get an editor to help you get the agent, or get your manuscript brushed up. And there's many different philosophies, right? But then you'll get another agent, or you'll get another editor once you get the agent, and then if your book gets purchased by a publishing house, then they'll give you another editor, and you'll go through 87 edits before the book's actually published and all that stuff. And this guy was just like, just go publish your book. And it took me another year to get up the courage to do it. But I created my own cover, and it was an Amazon created cover. So it wasn't the cutest cover, but you can make them. If you have a book, you don't need to be afraid because there are people out there that can help you build your cover. And I think I went on Fiverr and found an editor who combed through it for me. And one thing I do not recommend is do not give it to your lovely, nice friends to edit for you, because they will not, unless you have somebody who does it for a living. I published my first novel, and actually I finally got the courage last year, 2023, to pick it back up again and give it a good scrub. And because there were some things that people had told me as they read it, they were like, you completely repeated a scene, even though it's a different chapter, and you have several spelling mistakes, and you have like, it drifts off at one point. And I sat down and I edited myself, And then I paid somebody to give it another good buff. And then I republished it with a new cover in July, I think. And then yeah. So publishing, and then I tried querying Save the Last Piece. Christmas in Cleats was a Hallmark. Again, I submitted to Hallmark, got a lovely rejection from them, and then was like, well, if Hallmark doesn't want it, just gonna publish it myself. Because it's easy enough. So yeah, so I've gone the self-publishing route. I think someday, if and when an agent comes my way, I will definitely say yes, because it's always nice to have a team behind your book, as opposed to just you. But yeah, I'm a fan of self-publishing.
Yeah, I love how self-publishing, one, it allows you to really speed up the process, which is something that a few authors and I have discussed on this podcast before as well. Just how slow traditional publishing can be. And, it's because they're working on so many different books and working with so many different authors at once, so they can only make it so quick. But just the time, you can get a self-published book from the time you finish it to the time it's released in like 2 months. Whereas by the time you finish a book and it's released with a publisher, I mean, you're looking at least a year, but potentially, 2 years, 3 years, it can take a very long time. So, just the speed of being able to put things out already is just a huge benefit to self-publishing.
And if you look at it backwards from a publisher's standpoint, which somebody pointed this out to me. I'm slightly that genius, but also somebody pointed out to me, like, they are looking at the market and the trends in the market and what's what's selling and what's not, and what people are leaning towards, and also what's happening just in the world, like what's happening politically, what's happening universally, and they have to kind of be, mind readers of the public and figure out what's going to sell, because that's what they're in the business to do. They're in this business to sell books. And so, an agent sort of has to be a step ahead of a publisher, and or needs to be like, have a publisher's like pulse. So if your book is not what they're currently looking for, it doesn't mean it's a bad book. It doesn't mean it's not worth publishing. It doesn't mean it's not worth reading. It just means you are not hitting the right person or the right people at the right time. So there's no reason to not get your book published if somebody tells you no.
Absolutely, because timeliness is definitely a factor. And as you said, trends. Book trends, there are some trends that can last forever, but then there are other trends that are like, wow, this is great, we love it, and we're on to something else.
Yeah. I mean, Harry Potter, look at how long Harry Potter and Wizard World have lasted. And I say have, because people are still writing wizard and witch and school books and things like that. So there are trends that will continually keep going. So, yeah.
And I feel like that's one thing that I can definitely see publishers struggle with, is just because something is trendy at the time they accept a book, by the time they actually get a book released, a year or even 2 years later, it could be completely out of fashion and, not be as successful as it could have been if it had released earlier.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you also look at things like, Bridgerton has been really big in the last couple of years because Netflix picked it up. But the funny thing is, weren't those books, and somebody else will have this more right than I, those books were published like 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, and at least.
And then it took magical Shonda Rhimes to pick it up and go, wait a minute, this is good. Let's do this.
I'm actually going to look up when it first came out.
Oh, good. Fact check me.
Yeah, I'm going to fact check us both. Let's see. The first one came out in 2000. Yeah. They were released between 2000 and 2006.
So, I mean, it just, and not, if anybody is listening and is like, yes, that is what I want. I want to write something that Shonda Rhimes will produce one day. Like, good for you. Like, go for it.
That's the dream.
But also know that the dream. Well, it's fun. I sort of joke. I wish somebody would pick up the time turner and look at it and go, I want to make a screenplay of this because it's weird. I write as a novelist, but I see things as a film or I visualize things as a film. And like that book is really, if you go and read it now, anybody, if you go and read it, like it's really kind of film-esque. Like you can kind of see it on the screen in front of you. But yeah, someday somebody will pick up my book and make it into a film.
And that is exactly how I write as well. I mean, obviously, I write through words, and I know absolutely nothing about writing a screenplay whatsoever. But when I'm writing, I literally sit and like picture each and every single scene as if I was watching a movie in my brain, and then I write it down.
Yeah. And I mean, if you think about it, we're all subject to so much film and TV, and that's what we mainly digest. Or one of our two mains. I just got back from vacation where I read like 7 books in a week. No TV. It was great.
Amazing. Okay, that one is actually the dream.
It is the dream. I lived it. I'm very glad to have lived it. I'm not happy to be back at work. I just want to be sitting and doing reading. So this was a lovely like midday pause in my work day to not to talk about books for a moment as opposed to, just being all work. But yes, it is eye-opening to come back and not. I'm like, wait a minute. I haven't read anything today. What's happening?
And that brings us to a really important topic that I'd like to talk about, and that is balancing the busy work life with being a writer. I know a lot of potential writers or potential authors who feel discouraged about having the time to write and to put into a author career because of how much their day job takes up of them. So how do you manage that balance?
It is, I sometimes I win, sometimes I fail. I will be completely honest. When I'm most successful, I write every day. I found what works the best for me is either writing first thing in the morning or writing last thing at night. And when I'm really hunkering down on a work in progress, I will set an alarm on my phone. And I consider that time an investment, and I'll schedule it into my calendar. A very smart friend of mine tells me you will schedule things into your calendar that are important to you. You schedule in doctor's appointments, you schedule in work time, you schedule kid things, you schedule like, kid pickup, etc. Those are in your calendar. So if it's important to you, you will schedule time. And honestly, some days all I have is 5 minutes and I write for 5 minutes. And some days I have an hour. Some days I have endless time and it's magical. I write, I make sure that I always have access to pen and paper or my phone. So I can type. I mean, I have so many notes in my notepad app and my phone. I've now also fallen in love with, I did Scrivener for a while, but I didn't love how it all kind of fit together and the downloading was tricky and whatever. But I now will just do a document in Google Docs, and I have Google Docs as an app on my phone, and I will always make sure that I can work offline. So I can just sit there and I was on the airplane on the way to my vacation, and I got a brain what was it? Brain feast? What did we call it earlier?
Brain feeding.
Brain feeding. I got a brain feeding. And I just sat and typed out a whole scene on my phone, and it was it was amazing and lovely. And yeah, I just make sure, and I was, again, it's always hard to get back on track, right? So even again, 5 minutes, if you just give yourself 5 minutes a day, set a timer. It's not a problem to wake up 5 minutes early or go to bed 5 minutes late or turn off the TV for 5 minutes or not play on your phone or, whatever. There's something you can edit out of your life for 5 to 10 minutes a day to make room for your writing, if that's what really matters. And I mean, when it gets down to it, once you get the wind of motivation, or that muse hits you, you will want to spend more time doing it. So I have a friend who actually has a quiet problem. A lot of people, I'm a single lady in New York, so I have my entire apartment to myself. Um, I have a friend who has a writing closet, and she has put a little desk in her closet and a little chair, and she's got a little sign, and when the sign is, and she's got headphones, so sound canceling, and she's got a timer, and she'll just go sit in her closet and work. And when mom's in the closet, you leave mom alone, and that's a rule in the house. Otherwise you get in trouble. And it's great.
Yeah,
It's
that
great for
sounds
her.
honestly really efficient.
I think too, as a writer, you figure out what works for you and what doesn't. I'm definitely a plotzer. So I get an idea and I start writing, and then I write out sort of a an outline, and then I try to follow my outline. So that helps a little bit. I mean, because I can push myself. I'm like, well, I just need to write to this point, or I just need to finish this chapter, or I just need to um I need to get this thought across. And I just make myself, I get to a point where I just kind of push myself through the work in progress. We were talking earlier, I'm hoping to get a novel out by the end of the year. I started one earlier this year and have been, I have like 5 works in progress that are whining at me to finish them. And it's not because I don't have ideas. It's just that, life kind of takes a little bit more precedence, and I sometimes pay attention to life as opposed to my writing. But the one that I'm focused on right now is sort of a rom-com about, office politics. And I'm really hoping to get that one out because, like, as you said before, if you really focus on a book, there are people that can self-publish in 2 months. So if you sit down 70,000 words, I mean, I don't know if it's gauche or not to talk about NaNoWriMo at this point, but like what they set up, you write for a couple hours a day. You can do that on your own. And you can crank out 60,000 words, or you can crank out, which is a novel. So if you focus on it, you can get there.
My current work in progress started out as a nano project. Actually, that's not entirely true. My current project originally started as a fan fiction that I wrote in high school like 15 years ago. That I went back for a nano and started repurposing and cutting it up to pieces to rebuild something original out of it. So it started as a nano, but not completely as a nano.
Well, and I, you can, I like having something like NaNoWriMo or some sort of timeline or a writing buddy. Like a writing buddy is really helpful.
Yes,
like
writing buddies are imperative.
Yeah, like, just somebody to be like, okay, I had one for a while, and Friday we would check in on Friday, and we would just text each other our word count.
I love that.
And it was just, I mean, we like, there would be some pleasantries throughout the week, but like Friday 10 a.m., what's your word count? Like, where, if you've written 2 words, if you've written 10,000 words, where are you? And it keeps you, anything to keep you honest and keep you motivated, and yeah, that's the most important thing. So, yeah.
I have also done writing sprints over Zoom with writing buddies. Like, we'll get on and we'll like chit chat for 10 minutes and be like, okay, we have to set a timer. We put our Zooms on mute so we don't even speak to each other. And, our first one, we just start like 10 minutes just to kind of get us going. And then we talk for a few minutes, get a drink, some coffee, some water, whatever you need. And then after no more than a 10-minute break, then we go up to 15 minutes. And, depending on how much time we happen to have over that day, maybe we'll do a couple 15 minutes, maybe we'll do a couple 20 minutes. But at the end of each writing sprint, we also give each other our word counts that we just did. So it's kind of like writing with a buddy, and you get to take your breaks together, which is nice. And then you also work and focus at the same time too.
There's something so magical about that too. Like some people are like, oh, I couldn't do that. But like just having, and I don't know if if it's like school system and we all, used to have to like you would get your work time and at school everybody would be working at the same time. But there's something about it that is just sort of like lovely and holistic and like, okay, I'm in this and it doesn't work for everybody. I started trying to have a writing buddy earlier this year, a new writing buddy, and then he like took off writing. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. When are we meeting up? What's going on? So our pace was very different, but yeah, if you can find people who are either at the same pace as you or willing to be at the same pace, or are willing to work out whatever check-in point or whatever you have, like that's great too. Again, I highly recommend a writing buddy or a check-in buddy. And again, you have, because you will find there is more time once you start giving your writing time.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we are starting to run out of time here. So are there any?
No.
I know. We've been going. We've been here an hour.
It goes so fast.
I know. And honestly, it has been wonderful. So I definitely want to have you back again sometime. 2025, we'll get you on here.
I'm in.
with your ceiling umbrella.
With my ceiling umbrella and after our book trip to London.
Yes. Perfect. There we go. So do you have any final messages that you would like to share with our listeners today?
Yeah. Stop thinking that you can't publish your book. Stop thinking that you can't write your book. Stop thinking that your idea, I love it when people are like, yeah, but my idea's already been written about. I'm like, well, you know what? It's never been written about from your perspective. Like you've heard me say, like I had a Doctor Who moment and I wrote a time travel novel and it was like, it didn't start out as a Doctor Who, but it, and it didn't end as a Doctor Who. And I wrote a Hallmark novel that Hallmark didn't like. And I wrote a Devil Wears Prada of a whole different world that wasn't fashion. So stop thinking your idea is bad. Stop telling yourself you don't have time to write. Stop making excuses for not writing, because there are harder things. As Krystle and I can both tell you, the editing part and the publishing part, and like things get harder. So stop telling yourself you can't write, because anybody can write a book. And the book you want to write, there is at least 5 readers out there who want to read it. And honestly, like I will read dragon books until the day is over. Like give me a dragon in a book and I'm in. Give me a book about an art heist, I'm in. I will read all of them. So, don't be afraid to write something that you think has already been written, because it hasn't by you. So go write.
Well, thank you again so much for being here. This has been so wonderful, and I'm so happy that you were able to join us today.
Oh, I'm so happy. Thank you for having me. This has been, again, a joy in my day. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. This has been Must Love Books. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Patreon under @MustLoveBooksPodcast. Thank you, and happy reading.
Time is precious, and so are our pets. So time with our pets is extra precious. That's why we started Dutch. Dutch provides 24/7 access to licensed vets, with unlimited virtual visits and follow-ups for up to 5 pets. You can message a vet at any time and schedule a video visit the same day. Our vets can even prescribe medication for many ailments, and shipping is always free. With Dutch, you'll get more time with your pets and year-round peace of mind when it comes to their vet care.